It started as a normal day on Earth. People were working, studying, walking in busy streets, and living their simple lives. In cities full of lights and noise, no one expected that everything was about to change forever. Then suddenly, every screen on Earth went black. Phones, televisions, computers, billboards, even satellites, everything stopped at the same time. For a few seconds, there was only silence. People looked around in confusion. Some thought it was a global system failure. Others believed it was a cyber attack. But then, the screens turned on again. A strange symbol appeared. No one had ever seen it before. It was not from any country or company. It slowly rotated, glowing with a cold, blue light. Under it, a message appeared in every language on Earth. Observe. People felt uneasy. News channels tried to explain, but even they had no control. Governments quickly tried to shut the signal down, but nothing worked. The broadcast was coming from somewhere far beyond Earth. Then the image changed. At first, it showed a wide, dark space. Stars could be seen in the distance. Then the camera moved closer, and people gasped. It was Earth, but not the whole planet. It showed different places, cities, towns, and open fields. And in those places there were people. Thousands of them. Then millions. Men, women, children. All of them were standing together, confused and scared. No one understood what was happening. Families saw their loved ones on screen. A mother screamed when she saw her son standing in a large crowd somewhere far away. A man dropped his phone when he saw his wife among strangers. How did they get there? People asked. No one had an answer. Then they appeared. Tall figures walked into the frame. They were not human. Their bodies were covered in dark armor, smooth and shining. Their faces were hidden. They moved slowly, calmly, like they were not in a hurry. The world went silent. Everyone was watching. The figures stood around the humans, forming a circle. The people inside tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Invisible walls seemed to trap them. Then a voice spoke. It was cold, emotionless. We begin. Before anyone could understand, the figures raised their weapons. And then it happened. In one moment, everything changed. Bright flashes filled the screen. Loud sounds echoed through speakers across the world. People screamed. The humans inside the circle fell one after another. Chaos, fear, death. People watching at home started crying, shouting, begging for it to stop. Some turned off their screens, but the sound continued from other devices. There was no escape. Cities became quiet as people froze in shock. The broadcast continued. It moved from one location to another. Different groups of humans. Different places. But the same result. There was no mercy. No warning. No reason. Only death. Within minutes, millions were gone. The number kept rising. Governments tried everything. Military systems were activated. Satellites redirected. Emergency protocols started. But nothing could stop the broadcast. It was not coming from Earth. It was too powerful, too advanced. Leaders could only watch just like everyone else. Some people fell to their knees. Others stared at the screen, unable to move. Children cried, not fully understanding but feeling the fear around them. This was not a war. This was a message. After what felt like forever, the killing stopped. The screen went dark again. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then the symbol returned. Below it, a final message appeared. Weak. And just like that, the broadcast ended. Everything went back to normal. Phones worked again. TVs returned to regular channels. The internet came back. But nothing was normal anymore. The world had just watched 10 million people die. Live. No country claimed responsibility. No explanation was given. No enemy was known. Only one thing was clear. Earth was not alone. And whoever was out there had just declared something far worse than war. Silence spread across the planet. But inside that silence, something was growing. Not fear. Not panic. Something else. Something dangerous. Humanity had just been shown its place in the galaxy. And deep down it refused to accept it. The world did not scream. It went silent. After the broadcast ended, there were no celebrations, no loud reactions, No clear direction. Cities stayed still, like time had slowed down. Roads that were once full of cars became empty. Shops closed early. People stayed inside their homes, sitting in front of dark screens that had shown something no one could forget. 10 million people were gone. And no one knew who had done it. Governments across the world moved quickly, but quietly. Emergency meetings began within minutes. Leaders, military officers, scientists, all were called in. The most powerful people on Earth gathered, not in one place, but through secure systems hidden deep underground. No cameras. No press. For the first time in history, there were no public speeches. People waited for answers, but none came. Instead, something strange happened. Every country stopped talking. News channels kept running, but they repeated the same lines again and again. We are investigating. No one mentioned the aliens directly. No one spoke about war. It was as if the entire world had agreed to stay quiet. But behind that silence, everything was moving. Military bases increased security. Fighter jets were placed on standby. Naval fleets changed positions. Satellites began scanning deep space again and again, searching for anything unusual. Nothing was found. The enemy had come and gone without leaving a trace. In secret locations, scientists worked without rest. Old research files were opened, files that had been locked away for years. Experimental technologies, once considered too dangerous or too impossible, were brought back. Energy weapons, advanced propulsion systems, artificial intelligence models that were never meant to be used. Rules were changing. Slowly, quietly, Earth was preparing. In homes across the world, people struggled to understand what had happened. Families gathered together, holding each other tightly. Some cried for loved ones who had disappeared. Others stared at nothing, replaying the images in their minds again and again. A father sat in a dark room, looking at the last picture of his daughter. She had been one of the millions on the screen. He did not cry anymore. His face was empty, but inside something burned. In another city, a young boy asked his mother, "Are they coming back?" She had no answer. Across the planet, the same question was asked in different ways. No one had an answer. Days passed. Then a signal came. It was not like the first one. This time it was smaller, controlled. It appeared only on government systems, not public screens. The same symbol appeared, and the same cold voice returned. You were observed. Leaders watched in silence. You failed. No emotion. No anger. Just simple words. Your kind is weak. You exist for study, not resistance. Some leaders clenched their fists. Others remained still, hiding their emotions. But every one of them felt the same thing. Anger. The voice continued. No response is required. No action is expected. Remain as you are. Then the signal ended. No threats. No warnings. Just a statement. It was worse than a declaration of war. It was disrespect. The message spread among leaders quickly. But once again, nothing was told to the public. The world remained quiet on the outside. But that silence was no longer empty. It was heavy. In one underground facility far from any city, a meeting took place. Not between politicians, but between military commanders and scientists. They did not argue. They did not panic. They spoke calmly. They think we are weak, one man said. They are wrong, another replied. A decision was made. No votes. No delays. Humanity would not respond with words. There would be no message sent back. No warning. No request for peace. Only action. Across the world, projects were approved instantly. Resources were shared between countries without question. Old rivalries disappeared overnight. Borders became less important. For the first time, humanity was united. Not by hope, but by loss. Factories began working day and night. New designs were tested. Engineers pushed limits they had never crossed before. Soldiers trained harder, knowing this enemy was unlike anything they had faced. Still, to the outside world, everything looked calm. People went back to work. Schools reopened. Traffic returned. But something had changed. The fear was still there. But it was no longer alone. Now, there was something else beside it. Something stronger. Something quiet. Something waiting. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, hidden from the eyes of the world, machines powered on for the first time. Lights filled dark rooms. Systems came alive. Humanity was no longer asking questions. It had stopped looking for answers. Instead, it was getting ready to give one. And when that answer came, the galaxy would never be the same. The silence did not break. It changed. Days turned into weeks, and the world outside looked almost normal again. People went to work. Children returned to school. Shops opened, and cities filled with life once more. But it was not the same life. There were fewer smiles, more quiet faces, and eyes that had seen something they could never forget. Deep inside every human, something had shifted. The fear was still there, but it was no longer in control. Now there was focus. Across the planet, something bigger than any country had begun. It did not have a name, and it did not need one. Every government, every military, every scientist understood it without saying a word. Humanity had one goal: prepare. In a large underground facility, hidden far below the surface, a group of scientists stood in front of a massive screen. Data moved quickly across it: numbers, designs, calculations. Machines worked nonstop, building parts that had never existed before. A man stepped forward and spoke calmly. "We don't have years. We don't even have months." No one argued. Everyone knew he was right. The enemy had shown power beyond anything Earth had seen. They had taken millions of people without warning. They had controlled every screen on the planet. And they had done it easily. To face something like that, humanity had to change. Fast. Old ideas were thrown away. Limits were removed. Projects that had been rejected for being too risky were now approved in seconds. Nothing was off-limits anymore. Energy systems that could power entire cities were redesigned to power weapons. Engines once meant for exploration were turned into tools for speed and attack. Artificial intelligence, once carefully controlled, was given more freedom. It was dangerous. But humanity was no longer afraid of danger. In another part of the world, a military training ground had been transformed. Soldiers were no longer preparing for human wars. Their enemies would not think like them, would not fight like them. New strategies were created. New weapons were tested. Everything was changing. A young soldier stood with others, looking at a strange new rifle in his hands. It was lighter, stronger, and more powerful than anything he had used before. "Will this be enough?" he asked quietly. The officer beside him looked ahead. "It has to be," he said, but even he was not fully sure. Far above Earth, satellites moved into new positions. They were no longer just watching the planet. They were looking outward, scanning deep space again and again, searching, waiting. But the enemy did not appear again. No signals, no broadcasts, nothing. It was as if they had disappeared after delivering their message. That silence made everything worse, because it meant one thing: they were not worried. Back on Earth, the people continued their lives. But small changes could be seen everywhere. Posters appeared in cities, not loud or aggressive, but simple. "Stand together. Remember. Stay ready." Families who had lost someone in the broadcast were not forgotten. Their names were shared quietly, respectfully. No large events, no public displays. Just quiet remembrance. Grief had not disappeared. It had become something else. Strength. In a small home, a man sat with his son. The boy looked at him and asked, "Why do they do it?" The man paused. Then he answered slowly, "Because they thought we could not stop them." The boy looked down, thinking. "Can we?" he asked. The man did not answer immediately. Then he said, "We will try." That was enough. Across the world, millions of people thought the same thing in their own way. "We will try." In the deepest and most secure place on Earth, a final meeting was held. This time, it was not just leaders or scientists. It was everyone. Representatives from every nation stood together. No arguments. No disagreements. The past no longer mattered. Only the future. A large screen showed the image of the unknown symbol, the one from the broadcast. It stayed there for a long moment. Then one person spoke. They told us to remain as we are. Silence filled the room. Then another voice answered. We won't. That was the moment. The moment humanity changed. Not slowly, not step by step, but all at once. A decision was made. Earth would no longer wait. It would no longer hide. And it would never again allow itself to be seen as weak. Orders were given. Projects moved forward faster than ever before. The first true space fleet, designed not for exploration but for war, was officially approved. Humanity was no longer preparing to survive. It was preparing to fight. And somewhere far beyond the stars, the ones who had started it all had no idea what they had created. Because Earth was no longer the same. It had awakened, and it would not go back to sleep. The waiting was over. For months, Earth had stayed quiet. No messages were sent. No signals were answered. To the outside galaxy, it looked like humanity had accepted its place. But that was not true. Beneath the surface of the planet, in hidden bases and deep facilities, something powerful had been built. Now it was ready. In a massive underground hangar, lights turned on one by one, revealing something that had never existed before. A long, dark shape rested in the center. It was smooth, strong, and silent. The first human warship. It was not made to look beautiful. It was made to survive, to move fast, and to hit hard. Its body was covered with advanced armor. Its engines were built for speed far beyond anything used before. Weapons were hidden along its surface, waiting to be used. Engineers stood around it, watching quietly. Some felt proud. Others felt nervous. They all understood one thing. This ship was not just a machine. It was a message. A man walked forward and looked up at it. Is it ready? He asked. A woman beside him nodded. Yes. Fully prepared. There was a short silence. Then he said, launch it. The order spread quickly. Systems powered on. Lights on the ship came alive. A low sound filled the hangar as the engines began to wake up. Slowly, the ship lifted from the ground. For a moment, it hovered in the air, steady and strong. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, it shot upward and disappeared into the sky. Across the world, more launches followed. Not just one ship. Many. From different hidden locations, human warships rose into space. Some were small and fast, designed for scouting. Others were large, built for heavy combat. Together, they formed the first true fleet in human history. But this fleet had only one purpose: war. Inside one of the ships, a crew of soldiers and officers sat at their stations. Screens showed data moving quickly. The stars stretched out in front of them. For most of them, it was their first time leaving Earth. No one spoke much. There was no excitement, only focus. The commander stood in the center, watching everything carefully. Status, he asked. All systems active, one officer replied. Engines stable. Weapons ready. Navigation set. We are leaving orbit. The commander nodded. Proceed. The ship moved forward, faster and faster, until Earth became smaller behind them. They were no longer just humans from a single planet. They were something new. They were soldiers of Earth. Far away from them, in deep space, the galaxy remained quiet. Other species had already heard about the broadcast. Many had watched it. Some felt sorry for humanity. Others saw it as proof that humans were weak. No one expected a response. But slowly, strange readings began to appear. Ships. Unknown ships. Moving faster than expected. At first, no one paid attention. The galaxy was full of movement. Trade ships, patrol units, explorers. But these ships were different. They did not follow known paths. They did not send identification signals. They moved with purpose. And they were heading somewhere specific. Back on Earth, control centers monitored every movement. Screens showed the fleet spreading out into space, following different paths. The goal was simple: find the enemy. No one knew exactly where they were. The broadcast had not revealed their location. But humans had studied every detail, every signal, every movement, every small clue. They had a direction. And that was enough. In one control room, A scientist pointed at a screen. Long-range scans are picking up something, he said. What is it? Another asked. Energy traces, not natural. The room went quiet. Could it be them? Someone whispered. No one answered. But everyone was thinking the same thing. The hunt had begun. Inside the fleet, the commander received the update. Possible contact ahead, the officer said. The commander looked forward, his expression calm. Stay on course, he ordered. No hesitation. No fear. The ship continued moving through the darkness of space, engines glowing softly. For the first time in human history, Earth was not waiting for something to happen. It was making something happen. The galaxy had seen humanity as weak. A species to study. A species to ignore. But now, something new was moving among the stars. Something quiet. Something focused. Something dangerous. And the ones who had started it all still believed they were safe. They believed Earth would stay silent. They believed wrong. Because this was only the beginning. Humanity had taken its first step into war. And it would not stop. The galaxy was not silent. It was watching. Far beyond Earth, across countless star systems, many different species lived their own lives. Some were peaceful traders. Some were explorers. Others were powerful empires that controlled entire regions of space. They had all seen the broadcast. The moment when 10 million humans were killed had spread everywhere. It was talked about in space stations, on distant planets, and inside large fleets. For most of them, it was nothing new. Strong species often showed their power. Weak ones often suffered. That was the way of the galaxy. And to them, humanity looked weak. A young species, new to space, divided, unprepared, easy to ignore. But then things started to change. At first, it was small reports. Unknown ships had been seen traveling through deep space. They were fast. Faster than expected for a species like humans. They did not follow trade routes. They avoided known systems. They were searching. In one busy space station, filled with ships from different worlds, a group of traders sat together, talking quietly. I heard they've already left their system, one said. Humans? Another asked, surprised. Yes. Warships. The others looked at each other. That's impossible, someone said. They just got attacked. They should be hiding. But the first one shook his head. They're not hiding. Then what are they doing? The answer came quietly. They're hunting. The table went silent. Not far away, in a powerful empire's control center, large screens showed movements across space. Officers watched carefully as new data appeared. Unknown fleet detected, one officer reported. Origin, the leader asked. The officer paused for a second. Earth. A small murmur spread across the room. Humans, another officer said. Are you sure? Yes. The signal patterns match. The leader leaned back, thinking. How many ships? More than expected. And they're spreading out. The leader's expression changed slightly. Interesting, he said. He had expected fear. Panic. Maybe even surrender. But this was something else. They should not be moving like this, one officer said. They are too early. Too fast. The leader nodded slowly. Watch them, he ordered. Do not engage. Elsewhere in the galaxy, other species began to notice the same thing. Human ships, moving quietly, moving quickly, and always moving forward. Some species became nervous. They had seen what happened to the 10 million humans. They knew the power of the empire that had done it. If humans were going after them, it could lead to something much bigger. Others simply watched with curiosity. They did not believe humans could succeed. In their eyes, this was not a hunt. It was a mistake. Back inside one of the human ships, the crew remained focused. Days had passed since they left Earth. The stars around them looked endless. The commander stood near the front, watching the screen. Any updates? He asked. Still tracking the energy signals, the officer replied. They are getting stronger. The commander nodded. That meant one thing. They were getting closer. In another part of the ship, soldiers prepared quietly. Weapons were checked again and again. Equipment was adjusted. No one spoke much. They all remembered the broadcast. They all knew why they were here. A young soldier sat down for a moment, holding a small object in his hand. It was a picture. His family. He looked at it for a few seconds, then put it away. His face became serious again. There was no room for fear anymore. Only purpose. Back on Earth, control centers followed every movement. Data flowed constantly. Scientists and officers worked side by side. They are entering unknown space, one said. Any signs of the enemy? Another asked. Not yet. But the signals are clear. Something is out there. The room stayed quiet. Everyone understood. This was it. Humanity was no longer preparing. It was about to act. Far away, hidden in deep space, something waited. A small outpost. Part of the same empire that had made the broadcast. It was not a large base. It was not heavily defended. It was just one of many, placed far from the center. And it had no idea what was coming. Inside the outpost, everything was normal. Systems worked. Patrols moved as usual. There was no alarm. No warning. Because they believed they were safe. They believed no one would come for them. They were wrong. In the darkness of space, human ships moved closer. Silent. Focused. Ready. And as the distance closed, one thing became clear. The galaxy was not just watching anymore. It was waiting. Waiting to see what humanity would do next. Because something had changed. The species that was once seen as weak was now moving like something far more dangerous. And very soon, the galaxy would understand the truth. The outpost floated quietly in deep space. It was small compared to the great fleets of the Empire, but it was still powerful. Its walls were strong, its weapons active, and its systems always watching. At least, that is what they believed. Inside the station, everything was normal. Workers moved through long metal halls. Guards stood at their positions. Screens showed empty space around them. No danger. No threat. No warning. Because they had never considered one thing. Humans. Far away, hidden in the darkness between stars, a group of human ships moved closer. Their engines were low, almost silent. Their signals were masked. To anyone watching, they were nothing. Invisible. Inside the lead ship, the commander stood still, looking at the image of the outpost on the main screen. There it is, an officer said quietly. The room went silent. This was the moment they had been preparing for. The commander did not rush. He studied the outpost carefully. Every detail mattered. Skin results, he asked. Weak outer defenses, another officer replied. Limited patrol units. They are not expecting an attack. The commander nodded. That matched what they had hoped. They think they are safe, he said. No one smiled. No one relaxed. Because they knew what came next. The commander gave the order. Prepare to engage. Across the fleet, systems came alive. Weapons powered on. Targeting systems locked into place. Engines adjusted for fast movement. Everything was ready. Back on the outpost, a guard looked at his screen. For a moment, something strange appeared, a small signal, weak and unclear. He frowned. What is that? He muttered. He tried to scan again, but the signal disappeared. He shook his head. Probably nothing. That was his mistake. Seconds later, everything changed. A sudden flash of light cut through the darkness. Then another. And another. The first human attack hit the outer defense systems before the outpost could react. Explosions spread across its surface. Shields flickered, trying to activate. But it was too late. Inside the outpost, alarms screamed loudly. Attack! Attack! Someone shouted. Guards rushed to their stations. Systems tried to come online. Weapons began to move into position. But confusion slowed them down. They had not expected this. They had not prepared for this. Outside, human ships moved quickly. They did not stop. They did not hesitate. They attacked again. Precise. Fast. Deadly. Each strike hit a critical point. Power systems failed. Defense turrets exploded. Communication arrays were destroyed before they could send a warning. Inside the lead human ship, the commander watched calmly. Maintain pressure, he ordered. Yes, sir. Another wave of attacks launched. The outpost tried to fight back. A few weapons fired blindly into space, but they could not find their target. The human ships were too fast, too controlled, too focused. Within minutes, the outpost was no longer stable. Fires spread through its structure. Sections began to break apart. Escape pods tried to launch, but most were destroyed before they could get far. Inside, panic had taken over. "They came out of nowhere," one voice shouted. "Who are they?" another asked. But no one answered, because deep down they already knew. Humans. Back on the human ship, an officer looked at the screen. "Outpost integrity dropping," he reported. "They are losing control." The commander watched silently. He remembered the broadcast. The millions of people. The screams. The message. Weak. His eyes hardened. "Finish it," he said. The final attack was launched. A powerful strike hit the center of the outpost. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then, a massive explosion tore through the station. Light filled the darkness of space as the outpost broke apart. Pieces of metal and fire spread in every direction. Then nothing. Only silence. The first target was gone. Inside the ship, no one cheered. No one celebrated. The crew stayed quiet. This was not victory. This was a message. "Target destroyed," the officer said. The commander nodded once. "Record everything," he said. "Send it back." "Yes, sir." The fleet slowly moved away from the burning remains. Their mission was not over. This was only the beginning. Far across the galaxy, sensors began to pick up the explosion. Signals spread quickly. A destroyed outpost. No warning. No survivors. And one question echoed everywhere. Who did this? The answer came soon enough. Human ships had been seen near the area. The same unknown ships. The same fast movement. The same silence. The galaxy reacted. Shock. Confusion. And something new. Fear. Because the species that had been called weak had just made its first move. And it was not a small one. It was precise. It was powerful. And it showed no mercy. Back on Earth, the news reached the hidden control rooms. The room stayed quiet as the report finished. Then someone spoke. "It has begun." No one disagreed. Humanity had taken its first strike, and the galaxy was finally starting to understand. This was not a mistake. This was not a reaction. This was war. And Earth was not going to stop. The explosion did not stay hidden. In the vast darkness of space, nothing truly disappears. Signals travel, data spreads, and news moves faster than ships. Within hours, the destruction of the outpost was known across nearby systems. Within days, it reached distant parts of the galaxy. A single message repeated everywhere. An Imperial outpost had been destroyed. No warning. No survivors. At first, many did not believe it. The Empire was strong. It controlled many systems. Its outposts were not easy to destroy. Small attacks happened sometimes, but never like this. Never so fast. Never so complete. In one distant station filled with travelers, screens showed the broken remains of the outpost. Pieces of metal floated in space, still glowing from the explosion. A group gathered around, watching in silence. "Who could do this?" one asked. "Another empire?" someone guessed. But another voice answered quietly. "No." They all looked at him. It was humans. The word felt strange in the air. "Humans," someone repeated. "That new species?" The one who spoke nodded slowly. They were seen near the area. Unknown ships fast, silent. The group fell quiet. That made even less sense. "How could they do this?" one asked. They were attacked. They should be hiding. But deep down, everyone felt something was wrong. This was not the behavior of a weak species. This was something else. Far away, inside the empire that had made the broadcast, the reaction was very different. There was no confusion, only anger. Inside a large command center, officers stood in front of a massive screen. The destroyed outpost was displayed clearly. The leader stood in silence. His voice finally broke the room. "Explain." No one spoke at first. Then one officer stepped forward carefully. Unknown fleet entered the sector. No warning was detected. Attack was precise. Unknown, the leader repeated. The officer hesitated. Then he said it. Human. The room became still. For a moment, it felt like the air itself had frozen. Humans? Another officer said in disbelief. That is not possible. They are not capable of this level of attack, someone added. But the evidence was clear. The leader looked at the screen again. His expression changed slightly. Not fear. Not yet. But something close to concern. They responded, he said quietly. The officers said nothing, because they understood what that meant. The broadcast had not scared humanity. It had provoked it. The leader turned. Prepare defensive systems, he ordered. Increase patrols. Track all unknown ships. Yes, sir. The Empire had made its first mistake. Now, it was reacting, but it was already behind. Across the galaxy, smaller species began to worry. Many of them had stayed out of conflicts for years, choosing peace over war. They had seen powerful empires rise and fall. But this felt different. One small species held a meeting on their home world. Leaders gathered, speaking in low voices. If humans are attacking the Empire, one said, then war will spread. And if the Empire fights back, another added, entire systems could be destroyed. Silence filled the room. What should we do? Someone asked. The answer came slowly. Stay away. It was the only safe choice. Avoid humans. Avoid the Empire. Survive. Back in space, the human fleet did not stop. After destroying the outpost, they moved again. Their path was not random. Each move was planned carefully. They were not just attacking. They were studying, learning, adapting. Inside one of the ships, the commander stood with his officers. Report, he said. Enemy response increasing, one officer replied. More patrols. Stronger signals. The commander nodded. They are waking up. Should we slow down? Another asked. The commander shook his head. No. There was no hesitation in his voice. We move forward. The officers understood. This was not the time to stop. This was the time to push harder. In another part of the ship, soldiers prepared again. Weapons were cleaned. Armor was checked. No one spoke much. But something had changed. Before, there had been tension. Now, there was confidence. They had seen the enemy. And they had won. A young soldier looked at the others and said quietly, they are not invincible. No one laughed. Because it was true. Back on Earth, the news reached the hidden control centers again. This time, the room felt different. Less tense. More focused. The galaxy knows now, one person said. Yes, another replied. And they are watching. That was important. Because this war was not just about fighting. It was about sending a message. The same way the enemy had done. But this message was different. Clear. Direct. Powerful. Humanity was not weak. And it would not be treated that way again. Far out in space, the fleet moved forward once more, disappearing into the darkness. Behind them, fear began to spread across the galaxy. Not fear of the Empire, but fear of something new. Something unexpected. Something rising. Because the species that had once been ignored was now becoming something no one could ignore. And this was only the beginning. Days passed, but the human fleet did not stop. Every moment was a lesson. Every mission, every movement, every scan revealed more about the enemy and the vast galaxy beyond Earth. Inside the command ship, the crew worked like a single organism. Officers tracked energy signals, analyzed patrol movements, and adjusted their plans in real time. Soldiers prepared for combat at any moment. Engineers repaired ships mid-flight, often while under strain from long missions. Are we ready for the next strike? A young officer asked. The commander looked up from the display, calm but focused. We are always ready. They should have learned by now that we do not hesitate. The ships moved through star systems silently. No signals were sent, no warnings given. Humans had mastered stealth and speed, a combination few in the galaxy had ever seen. Meanwhile, back on Earth, changes were even more dramatic. Cities became quiet hubs of advanced industry. Factories, once producing basic goods, were now manufacturing advanced weapons, ship components, and energy systems. Engineers worked day and night, their eyes tired but determined. Laboratories, long abandoned or considered too risky, were now active. Energy weapons, propulsion systems, and AI units were tested faster than ever before. Failures were expected, but the team learned from every mistake. Humanity adapted faster than any species had ever done. A scientist in one lab held up a glowing component. This could triple engine output. Another engineer shook her head. We need to make it stable first. One failure, and the whole system could explode. The first scientist smiled. Then we will try until it works. That is what humans do. And they did. The first human fleet had already destroyed an Imperial outpost, but the lessons did not stop there. Every battle, every movement, every observation was carefully analyzed. Humans studied not just the enemy, they studied themselves, their weaknesses, their strengths, and how to improve faster than any other species in the galaxy. On board one ship, a young soldier cleaned his weapon for the third time that day. He looked at the stars outside the window, thinking of the millions who had died in the broadcast. I will not fail them, he whispered. Beside him, another soldier nodded quietly. Neither will I. Even the young learned quickly. Survival and victory depended on speed, intelligence, and courage. The galaxy would see humans as fast, unpredictable, and dangerous. As the fleet moved, alien patrols began to notice them. But by the time the enemy tried to respond, humans had already vanished into the darkness, leaving confusion in their wake. Every engagement, every attack, every maneuver was precise. Are they learning? A distant observer whispered in disbelief from another system. Yes, another replied. Faster than anything we have seen. They adapt. They evolve. They do not fear. Back on Earth, engineers celebrated small victories quietly. A new engine design worked perfectly. AI systems learned to predict enemy movements before the humans even observed them. Weapons were more accurate, more powerful, and more efficient than any prior design. But no one celebrated loudly. There was no time for pride. There was only the future. Humanity was changing. Not just their ships or weapons, but themselves. Every human involved in the effort, soldier, engineer, scientist, learned, adapted, and grew stronger. Even civilians contributed. They worked in research, supported supply chains, and kept the world running. Every person knew that survival depended on the collective effort of all. One leader in a control room said quietly, "We are no longer the humans they knew. We are faster, stronger, smarter." Another nodded. "And we are just beginning." In deep space, the fleet continued its mission. Every strike, every move, every decision was designed to make humans better, faster, stronger. They were learning not just to fight, but to dominate. The galaxy began to notice the difference. Rumors spread. Stories grew. Traders and travelers whispered about humans that adapted, learned, and improved faster than any other species. Fear began to spread quietly among the smaller species. They did not understand humans yet, but instinctively, they felt the danger. And for the empire that had killed 10 million humans, the change was even more dangerous. They had underestimated the species they had tried to humiliate. They had thought humans would hide, beg, or surrender. Instead, humans were evolving. Faster than expected, stronger than imagined, deadlier than anyone could predict. And somewhere deep in space, as the fleet prepared for the next strike, the commander looked at the stars and whispered to his crew, "They showed us our weakness. Now we show them our strength." It was not just revenge. It was a transformation. Humanity had awakened fully. And the galaxy would never forget it. The galaxy's silence was over. Signals of human activity spread quickly across multiple systems. Alien patrols were no longer catching glimpses of unknown ships. They were facing full fleets moving with precision, purpose, and terrifying speed. Inside the command ship, the human officers studied their next target. A cluster of Imperial supply lines stretched across several star systems. Convoys, lightly defended stations, and patrol fleets formed a network meant to maintain control of the Empire's distant territories. Enemy supply lines confirmed. An officer reported. Multiple weak points detected. We can disrupt them without alerting the main fleet, yet. The commander nodded. Good. That is exactly what we will do. Begin attack planning. Within hours, the plan was ready. Human ships divided into smaller units, each moving silently through space toward their designated targets. Sensors confirmed the positions of the convoys and outposts. Every detail was accounted for, every potential response calculated. As the first strike units approached, alien crews inside the convoys were busy with routine operations. Shields were partially active, weapons manned, but most soldiers were unaware of the danger approaching. Their empire had been confident. The broadcast was long ago, and they believed humanity weak. Then the first shots hit. Blinding energy beams struck key points on supply ships. Engines exploded, and fire spread quickly through cargo holds. Automated defense systems tried to respond, but human targeting was faster, precise, and unpredictable. Inside one of the attacked ships, a young alien soldier screamed, "We are under attack. Activate full shields." But before the crew could fully react, a second strike destroyed their communication systems. Panic spread across the convoy. Some ships attempted to flee, but human scouts blocked their paths, cutting off escape routes with rapid, coordinated movements. On board the command ship, the commander watched the attack unfold on the screens. There was no celebration, no unnecessary emotion. This was strategy, pure and simple. Keep pressure on all targets, he ordered. No mercy. Learn from everything we see. The strikes continued across the Empire's network. Supply lines crumbled. Outposts burned. Small fleets were destroyed before they could regroup. The Empire's response was immediate. Ships from nearby regions moved to intercept the humans. Weapons fired at the approaching fleet, but the humans were already gone, appearing in another location seconds later, attacking again. An officer whispered, "They're too fast, too precise. How are they doing this?" The commander did not answer. He already knew. Humanity had adapted. Every strike had been a lesson, every movement a step forward in learning the enemy's patterns. The humans predicted, adjusted, and executed faster than anyone expected. Across the galaxy, the Empire's Central Command began to take notice. Reports flooded in from multiple regions. Outposts destroyed, convoys lost, patrols eliminated. The broadcast of 10 million deaths had provoked something they did not understand. Inside the Empire, fear began to stir. Not panic, but a careful, growing concern. Something about humanity had changed. Something dangerous. In one control room, an officer reported, "We are losing control of several sectors. They are not just attacking, they are learning from us, adapting faster than expected." The leader's face darkened. This cannot be. Humans are weak. They are insignificant. Why are they moving like predators? No answer came. The evidence was clear. The humans were breaking the Empire's lines, one system at a time. Back aboard the human ships, crews remained calm. Soldiers checked weapons. Engineers adjusted systems mid-flight. Scouts scanned new targets. Every person knew the importance of precision, of timing, of learning from every action. A young soldier looked out of the viewport at the burning remains of a supply station. He did not feel joy or revenge. He felt focus. "We will not stop until the Empire feels the cost of what they did," he said quietly. The commander overheard him and nodded.
Exactly.
"But remember, we are not just fighting. We are teaching. Every movement matters. Every strike sends a message." By the time the Empire realized the scale of the attacks, it was too late. Humans had already moved on, striking in systems far from the first battles. Communications were jammed, supply routes severed, and the morale of Imperial forces was crumbling. Rumors spread among alien populations. Traders and small species whispered in fear. The humans were no longer weak. They were unstoppable, relentless, and evolving with every engagement. Back on Earth, control centers monitored the battles. Engineers analyzed the outcomes, adjusted designs, and shared new strategies instantly. Every success was studied, every mistake corrected. Humanity was learning faster than any other species in history. And through it all, the humans kept moving forward. Their goal was clear: disrupt the Empire, weaken their hold, and make them understand that humanity could not be ignored. By the end of the cycle, the Empire's network was in chaos. Convoys destroyed, outposts burned, and patrols scattered. Humans had broken the lines that once seemed untouchable. And somewhere in the shadows of space, the commander of the human fleet whispered to his crew, "They thought we were weak. Now, they will know the truth. We are not just survivors, we are hunters." The galaxy watched, and for the first time, even the mighty Empire began to feel fear. The galaxy was quiet, not the calm of peace, but the calm of waiting. Every species that had been watching the human fleet now knew one truth: humanity was no longer weak. They were fast, precise, and deadly. Inside the lead human ship, the commander stood before the main screen. Stars stretched endlessly outside the viewport, but his eyes were fixed on something deeper, something invisible. "This is it," he said softly. An officer turned to him. "Are you sure?" "The Empire is far from finished." The commander shook his head slowly. "We are not here to finish them. Not yet. We are here to make them understand. One message. One clear statement." He gestured to the communication console. "Prepare the transmission." The officer hesitated. "This will be broadcast across enemy systems. They will see it immediately." "Exactly," the commander replied. "Let them see what humanity has become." The crew worked quickly. Systems were powered, signals amplified, and a single message was composed. Unlike any warning or threat, it was short, direct, and undeniable. A single phrase repeated across every enemy network. "You showed us what we were. Now we show you what we've become." No threats. No demands. No promises of mercy. Just a statement. Across the fleet, soldiers felt a strange sense of unity. Every ship, every crew member, every officer knew the meaning. This was not revenge. This was clarity. This was humanity asserting its place in the galaxy. Far away, in distant sectors of the Empire, alarms blared. Officers stared at the screens in disbelief. The transmission appeared everywhere: outposts, patrol fleets, central hubs. The words repeated in multiple languages, perfectly adapted for every species within the Empire's control. A young officer in the Empire's command room shook his head. "They're confident?" "Yes," his superior said, voice low. "And we underestimated them." Fear was beginning to spread. Not panic yet, but unease. The Empire had assumed humans were weak, disorganized, and incapable. They had thought the broadcast of 10 million deaths would teach Earth obedience. Instead, it had created something far more dangerous. Back aboard the human ship, the commander watched the reaction carefully. Sensors tracked enemy movements. Ships were reorganizing, patrols moving, and shields rising across multiple systems. "Good," he said. "They are responding exactly as we expected. They fear us now, even if they do not admit it." The officer beside him asked, "What's next?" The commander's eyes narrowed. "We wait for the right moment. We let them show us their weakness. And when they do, we strike again. Not with anger, with certainty." The fleet moved silently through the stars. Scouts monitored enemy fleets, patrols, and communications. Engineers fine-tuned weapons and engines. Every action was measured, precise, and deliberate. In the darkness of space, the human soldiers understood the meaning of what they were doing. This message was more than words. It was proof of evolution, of survival, of strength born from tragedy. 10 million lives had been taken, but humanity had responded not with fear or submission, but with focus and growth. The galaxy, for the first time, began to see humans differently. Traders whispered of their fleet's speed. Scientists studied their technology. Alien species spoke in hushed tones about how rapidly humans adapted and learned from each encounter. Back on Earth, hidden control centers monitored everything. The room was silent, filled only with the soft hum of computers. Every officer, every engineer, every scientist understood the meaning of the final message. "This is our declaration. one scientist said. Not war. Not revenge. Understanding. Strength. A general nodded. It will change the galaxy forever. They will never see humans the same way again. And across the stars, the Empire tried to respond. Patrols shifted. Outposts were reinforced. Communication lines scrambled. But it was too late. The human fleet had already moved, already studied, and already prepared for every counterattack. The final message had done its job. The Empire now knew that humanity could not be controlled, could not be underestimated, could not be ignored. Inside the lead ship, the commander turned to his crew. "We do not boast," he said. "We do not threaten. We act. Let them learn. Let them feel the truth in every move we make." The crew understood. Their eyes were focused, their minds clear. Every human aboard the fleet was united by one idea: survival was not enough. Humanity would thrive, evolve, and claim its place in the galaxy. And far beyond, wherever the Empire's forces tried to regroup, the message echoed. It was short, simple, powerful. "You showed us what we were. Now we show you what we've become." The stars remained still, but humanity had begun to move. And the galaxy would never forget. The Empire had underestimated humanity. They had believed Earth would remain weak, small, and obedient. The broadcast of 10 million deaths was supposed to remind humans of their place in the galaxy. But it had done the opposite. Now, the Empire faced a species that had evolved faster than anyone could imagine. Inside the Empire's command center, the mood was tense. Officers rushed from one station to another, trying to track the human fleet. Every system they monitored showed new movement, unexpected attacks, and precise strikes that disrupted supply lines and communications. One officer spoke urgently. "They're everywhere. They're hitting multiple sectors at the same time. How is this possible?" A senior commander shook his head. "They are learning faster than we can predict. They're adapting with every engagement." In distant fleets, alien soldiers whispered in fear. Reports came in from smaller patrols. Outposts destroyed, convoys annihilated, and fleets scattered. The Empire's control over its distant territories was slipping. Meanwhile, humans remained calm. On board the lead ship, the commander reviewed data from the latest strikes. Every loss, every mistake, every encounter had been studied and improved upon. "They thought they could control us," he said quietly. "They thought fear would keep us in line. They were wrong." "Yes, sir," an officer replied. "We have already learned more from them than they know about us." The fleet continued its march through the galaxy. Every attack was calculated, every movement deliberate. Humans did not waste energy on unnecessary fights. They focused on crippling supply lines, weakening outposts, and testing enemy responses. Each strike sent a message louder than any broadcast could. The Empire scrambled its fleets to respond. A massive force moved toward the human fleet, hoping to stop them. The humans did not retreat. They moved with precision, striking before the Empire could react fully. In the middle of space, a massive engagement occurred. Imperial ships fired energy weapons, attempting to surround the humans. But the humans moved with speed and coordination no one had seen before. They evaded attacks, outmaneuvered the enemy, and targeted weak points with deadly accuracy. The battle was short, brutal, and decisive. Imperial ships were destroyed or forced to retreat. Communication lines were severed. Supply networks collapsed. Inside the Empire's central command, the leader slammed his fist on the table. "This is unacceptable. Humanity was supposed to be weak. They cannot do this." An officer responded, voice low. "Sir, they are not like anything we have faced before. They are learning, adapting, and fighting with intelligence we have never measured." The leader's eyes narrowed. "Then we must change our approach. We cannot fight them the way we always have. We must think differently." But even he knew the truth. Humans were no longer predictable. Every encounter taught them something new. Every strike made them stronger. Back in the human fleet, soldiers checked their weapons and prepared for the next mission. Engineers fine-tuned engines and weapons. Every system was monitored, every movement planned. A young soldier looked out into the stars and whispered, "We're stronger now. We can win this." The commander overheard and nodded silently. "Not just win," he said. "We will survive, we will grow, and we will show the galaxy that humans cannot be underestimated." Across the Empire, fear began to spread. Officers whispered in hallways, soldiers questioned orders, and smaller species that depended on the Empire began to reconsider their loyalty. The human fleet had become a symbol of something greater, the rise of a species that refused to be crushed. The Empire tried to send a message. They broadcast warnings, threats, and demands. But humans did not respond with words. They responded with action. Every strike was precise. Every maneuver was deliberate. Every movement taught a lesson. Earth was no longer weak. Humanity had transformed from prey into predator. In the darkness of space, the human fleet prepared for the next phase. The first outpost had fallen. Supply lines were broken. Imperial fleets had been scattered. And still, the humans moved forward.
Calm.
Focused. Relentless. On board the command ship, the commander looked at the stars and said, "They thought fear would stop us. Now, the galaxy will know our strength." The officer beside him asked, "What is the next target, sir?" The commander's eyes were steady. "Every weak point they think is safe. Every system they assume is protected. We will show them that none of it is. Humanity does not forget. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity survives." The fleet moved on. The Empire's lines were breaking. Fear spread among its forces. And the galaxy began to understand a new truth. Humans were no longer weak. They were unstoppable. And they were coming for more. The galaxy had changed. No one could deny it anymore. From the moment the human fleet had struck the first outpost to the latest battle across multiple systems, one truth became clear. Humans were no longer weak. They were precise, adaptive, and unstoppable. Inside the lead human ship, the commander stood in front of the main screen. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport. Small points of light represented distant planets and enemy ships, but his focus was clear. "They think they can rebuild," he said quietly. An officer beside him asked, "Sir, what do we do now?" The commander's eyes were sharp. "We do not wait. We do not hesitate. Every system they thought was secure is now a target. Every supply line, every outpost, every fleet. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget." The crew moved with precision. Soldiers checked weapons, engineers fine-tuned engines, and officers calculated movements across dozens of star systems. Every action was deliberate. Every decision built on lessons learned from the battles that came before. In the Empire's distant command center, fear had taken hold. The leader paced in front of large screens. Reports of losses, disruptions, and destroyed fleets filled the room. The human fleet had not slowed. It had only grown stronger, smarter, faster. "They are everywhere," one officer said nervously. "Every system we defend, they strike first." The leader's expression hardened. "Then we must change everything. Every strategy. Every patrol. Every defense. Humans cannot be underestimated anymore." Back aboard the human fleet, the soldiers and officers knew they had already won more than battles. They had won respect, not through words, but through action. Humanity had shown the galaxy what it was capable of: survival, adaptation, and power born from tragedy. A young soldier looked out the viewport at the remains of a destroyed supply station. "We're making history," he said softly. The officer next to him nodded.
Yes.
But this is just the beginning. Across Earth, control centers monitored the fleet in real time. Engineers analyzed outcomes, scientists predicted enemy movements, and leaders coordinated every strike. Every small victory was studied and improved upon. Humanity was learning faster than any other species in history. In the darkness of space, the fleet moved like a single organism. Scouts moved ahead, strike units followed, and the main fleet held formation. Every move had purpose. Every strike sent a message. The Empire attempted to regroup, but it was too late. Convoys were destroyed before they could reach safe sectors. Outposts burned. Fleets scattered. Morale collapsed. Fear spread through ranks that had never faced a human before. The commander turned to his officers. They believed they controlled the galaxy. They believed humans were weak. They were wrong. "Yes, sir," an officer replied. "We have proven it." The commander's eyes scanned the stars. "We must continue. Humanity will not stop. Not until every system knows our strength. Not until the galaxy understands one thing. We survive, and we dominate when necessary." Soldiers prepared for the next strike. Engineers checked weapons and systems. Every human aboard the fleet understood the meaning of their mission. This was not revenge. It was not conquest for pride. It was survival. It was a declaration. It was humanity's rise. In the Empire's Central Command, alarms continued. Officers shouted orders, but humans were already gone, striking elsewhere. The Empire's defenses were too slow. Their reactions too late. Smaller species whispered across distant systems. Traders, explorers, and diplomats spoke quietly. Humans, they are different now. They learn too fast. They adapt too quickly. And they strike without mercy. Across the galaxy, one truth spread faster than any weapon. Humanity could no longer be ignored. Back aboard the fleet, the commander addressed the crew. "Remember this. Every battle we fight is not just for survival. It is for the lesson we leave behind. A lesson that weakness is not accepted. That humanity cannot be underestimated. That our species will rise." The crew nodded silently. They understood. Every life lost in the broadcast, every struggle, every challenge had led to this moment. The fleet continued its march. Systems fell, supply lines collapsed, and Imperial fleets scattered. Humanity had not just fought back, they had reshaped the galaxy's view of them. The commander looked at the stars and whispered, "They thought they could break us. They thought fear would stop us. They were wrong. Humanity rises. And the galaxy will remember." The stars stretched endlessly. The Empire reeled in shock. And somewhere, in the depths of space, the human fleet moved forward, unstoppable, unyielding, and fully awakened. For the first time in history, the galaxy knew the truth. Humanity had survived. Humanity had adapted. Humanity had risen. And no one would ever see them as weak again.